Well, hello and welcome back to A320 Flight Sim. Today we're going to be taking our LATAM Airbus A320neo from Lima, Peru to Cusco, Peru. This is a beautiful flight that's going to take us down the Pacific coast for a little bit before turning inward and crossing into the mountains. An adventurous RNAV approach banks us low through the peaks and valleys of the Andes before a last-minute turn lines us up to runway 28 in Cusco, a high-altitude landing at 11,100 feet. And in today's flight, a last-second crosswind makes the landing even more of an experience as we try to keep our A320 on centerline. So let's go ahead and hop in our LATAM Airbus A320 as we make our way out of Jorge Chavez International Airport in Lima, Peru. Alright, we're going to get her rolling down the runway here, down runway 16 right at Jorge Chavez. Get her up to, I believe it's 143 knots was my rotate speed. My playback program that we use to play these videos back afterwards. So what we do is we fly the flight, record the flight data, and then replay the flight so we get these different camera angles. And that program is a little glitchy here. You can see it's kind of just choppy. It just happened to this little part of takeoff, so I apologize for that. It clears up pretty quickly after this, so I had to cut a few parts out of here that I would usually keep during the takeoff. But here we go. We're up in the air and over the city of Lima. Very beautiful city. I was actually able to visit there a few summers ago for about 10 days or so. It was an amazing trip. My kids went back a couple summers ago. They actually were able to go to Cusco, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this flight. It was a place I did not get to visit, but they said it was an amazing time for them. So got to visit here in the sim at least. And as we go up the coast here, the west coast of Peru, the Pacific Ocean out there, beautiful Pacific Ocean. And off to the side here, when we start to kind of turn back in, you're going to see these ruins. Not exactly perfect, but you can see these ruins, the ruins of Pachacamac. I was able to visit those. They're amazing. And then up this little valley here was a little town where I was able to visit with some friends. We went to church, had a great time. It was a really nice day there in the southern part of Lima. So we're going to get our aircraft up to about 39,000 feet. Get it up and over the mountains. We do not stay up at our flight level 39,000 feet very long before it is time to start our descent and into Cusco. So we'll see that in just a second. Alright, we're going to start our descent down into Cusco. Like I said, we do not stay up at that 39,000 feet for very long. We've got to drop back down into 21,000 feet is our first point on our RNAV approach into runway 28. So let's take a look at the chart here. You can see it might be a little bit confusing. There's a lot of different entry points in here. But we are coming from the left side of the chart over here at dark 1 is our initial entry. As you're going to see, we're going to be at flight level 210, so 29,000 feet. And from there, we're going to drop our way down until we're landing at 11,100 feet is the runway elevation for runway 28 there in Cusco. So you can see we're trying to follow these little valleys. You can sort of see the elevation here with the white and the brown being the light brown, the tan, those are being the high points of the mountains, and then the dark part is the valley down into Cusco. So we've got to come in, we've got to make all these little spots as we drop down, but we can't drop down too far. And when you see the flight, you're going to see that we're not too far above the top of those mountains. And then there's this point here when we make this big turn back towards the valley, and then you see there about where it's ZO610, we have to just kind of dive the aircraft down at that point. And you're going to see it on the video that we're going to take quite a bit of a dip there as we get down into the valley, and then we follow that. And when you look at the next chart, what you're going to see is that we are off of the runway. We have to follow the valley, and then right at that last second, at that last waypoint at Z0520, we make a quick left, and then we're lined up with the runway. So you're going to see that here, how that works. It's a little bit of an adventure, but it's a fun approach to fly into Cusco. Alright, so here we go. We're on our descent. We're starting to make that left-hand turn I was talking about, where we're circling back around to start lining up to the valley that we need to drop down into to get to Cusco. Big left turn, big left turn. And we're also losing altitude here at the same time, trying to keep the aircraft slow. And it's about this point we're extending flaps. And now, this is that one I was telling you about. The valley is there. We're going to be turning to our left, but we've also got to get way down here. So we're going to start to drop the aircraft pretty quickly. because we've got to get down to the correct flight level, but we've got to keep it between these mountains. Don't want to go too low. We can't overshoot. I mean, it's a critical spot here in the flight. So we're going to drop down pretty quickly, but you can see we've got kind of a plateau here that we want to skim over the top. You know, we're not in a Cessna where we're, you know, dragging a runway or something like that, but we do need to stay low enough, because once that plateau drops away, we have to get down into that valley again, like I was telling you about. So it drops off pretty quick, and so we've got to maintain that, get into that valley, which is what we're doing now. We've dropped down off that plateau, and now we're getting lined up onto the approach. And from this point forward, we're just going to take a few little zigs and zags as we go through this valley. And when you see the runway at first, it's a little bit confusing because you're not lined up with the runway, and it's coming up really fast. And that last waypoint, when you make that quick left jog and you line up with the runway, is really right at the last second. So it can be a little disconcerting the first time you do it, even though you look at your chart and you're prepared for it, because if you've prepped your flight and you've prepped your approach and your landing, you know it's coming, but it's still a little bit weird the first time I did it personally. Nice views here out the window as we come down the valley. Alright, getting close to that 5-mile mark, generally around 5 nautical miles, and we're going to drop that gear. There she comes. Get those landing gear down. Very important landing gear. Makes for a rather tough landing without them. There's the front nose gear. Alright, so we're kind of on that final little bit here, and you can see, I'm not sure if you can see it out there far enough, but the runway is kind of angled off to our left there. And so it almost looks like we're going to miss it. We're angling to the right of where we need to be, but that's the flight path that we're following. That's the correct flight path. It's just it doesn't look good. You feel like, wait a minute, I'm missing the runway here, but that's exactly where you're supposed to be. And so you just have to wait, be patient, and when you hit that waypoint, then you can make that left turn, but not before. Now we've reached that point where we can start to make that left-hand turn. You can see we're only a couple miles off, not even a couple miles off the end of the runway. I'd have to go back and look at the chart and see exactly how far it is, but it's not very far. So we make that left-hand turn, we get stable for our approach. We're full flaps, we've got gear down. It was a little bit low at first, then I'm a little bit high, but I do manage to get it down to where it's supposed to be, to the 2 white, 2 red on those pappy lights. Bring it in. And then I felt so good about this landing, and then right about here, I got hit with this huge left side crosswind. Came in from my left, blew me over. I got on my rudders quick, kind of crabbed it over, and actually, it scared me for a minute because everything was going fine, and that wind came out of nowhere. But I was kind of proud of the fact that I really still managed to keep it fairly close to center. I was a little bit right of center, but that crosswind came out of nowhere on me. So for me, that was a realistic thing. I kind of enjoyed it because it's something I don't think I've had happen to me too often. I've certainly dealt with crosswinds before, but not an unexpected one like that. Everything was going fine, and then all of a sudden it just kind of pushed me right over to the right. Hit that rudder as quickly as I could, try to straighten it out. Certainly kept it on the runway, just a little bit right of center, but pretty proud of that. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and taxi our LATAM A320 up to this little terminal here in Cusco. It only has about a half dozen gates or so. But we'll get up there, get her parked, get it all unloaded, get it shut down. And this is that time where we just want to say again, thank you so much for supporting A320 Flight Sim. We really appreciate it if you can hit that like, hit that subscribe button. If you have any comments, please leave them below, or you can send a message through the page. And again, if you know anybody who might enjoy some Flight Sim videos, please be free to share this page with them, and I would really like that. And again, if you have any places you'd like to see, if you have any cool takeoff or landing that you'd like for me to try out, or if there's a city pair that you'd like to see me fly to and from with some highlights, again, I'd be more than happy to do that. So again, thank you again for supporting A320 Flight Sim, and have a great day.